Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I've been a bit quiet for the last 2-3 days. Um, been a bit sick, tummy troubles, um, and yeah, I've been very chilled the last couple of days. Just trying to recover from that. But yeah, yesterday I didn't feel like playing, and probably because I wasn't feeling well. And yeah, it's pretty much the same story for the other couple of days. But with that said, I was wondering about what I was going to stream about next. And yeah, I've been receiving quite a few WhatsApps. I normally do. Basically just questions about EMS. Now remember, I'm not the spokesperson for EMS, so I can't speak for EMS. But a lot of people have been asking me questions about why are EMS not taking volunteers, and what's it like? How do you become a medic? And one of the other questions I received is, am I actually a medic in real life, or is it just a name I've come up with? So I figured, well, there's a guy that streams that I follow a lot, and his name is Shmo. So he always has like a trend to his streams. So I don't have GoPros and stuff, so I'm just gonna muddle with the division in the background, and then I will stream and just look over here to where all my questions are that I've been asked. I've told the necessary people that they can watch the stream, because I'm not going to send 20 emails. I don't have pluck for that. So you can just listen to me, and if you want to join the chat and ask me questions, you can go for it. But let's start with question number 1. So, am I a medic in real life, or is it just a thing I act? No, I actually am a medic. I've got quite a bit of a history.
You want a challenge? I got one.
When I left school, I studied IT. I was going to be the typical IT guy. I hated everything except for computers. Then worked for Cape Ads. Look, at the end of the day, long story short is I've ended up as a medic. I was working for an IT company in Edgemead that then moved to ooh, a nice jacket. Montague Gardens. I worked for them for quite a long time. Then I was a volunteer firefighter for VWS, Volunteer Wildfire Services. We had to do a first aid course and collect Simon's cash. What the fuck's this? Shit, where did this come from? Very cool, very cool. I found something I didn't know. Look at all the clothing items. Let me put them on. So then I did a first aid course, and I loved first aid. And then I basically arranged with Netcare 911. It's a private ambulance service in Cape Town, to get all the VWS members to that did the first aid course to maybe just put it into practical use. So we did ride-alongs with Netcare, 3 each for the group of 15 or whatever, and everyone loved it. I loved it. So then I did my basic with a college in Cape Town called Ambitech, and I still loved it, but I think my passion for it really started when I did my first shift. And I just want to give you a little bit of history. Back in the day, well, not back in the day, but in Cape Town we have a EMS service called Metro EMS. That's my service. But back in the day, people used to say bad things about them. Now, if you see some of the staff, we're not exactly the skinniest people around. So I passed my basic course, and then I wanted to volunteer with Metro because they're the busiest. They go do calls everywhere. And let me see what this guy looks like when he's dressed up. Take the hat off. It looks stupid. So I was arranged a volunteer shift by a friend, and I was put with 2 very fat guys. And I thought to myself, oh my god, here is my night. I'm going to work with two of the laziest people on the planet. I'm not going to learn anything. One of the partners' names, and I'm proud to say his name, is Mr. Jacobs. Now, when I got into the vehicle, Mr. Jacobs said to me, I had on my navy blue thing, student, but it was sewn on, unfortunately, because I wanted people to know that I was a student, that I was learning. Got into the vehicle, and like I said to you, I was thinking, oh fuck, here goes my night. Gonna waste my 12 hours. He asked me, am I here to learn or to watch? So I said to him, I'm here to learn. And boy, did I learn a fuckload that night. So going from thinking I'm going to work with two of the biggest, fattest people in the service to actually working my ass off that night. I don't think I've ever worked that hard. Mr. Jacobs threw me into the deep end. He taught me everything. Now when I say everything, I mean to most people it's like I did everything in one night. I learned how to speak on the radio. Now remember, there's radio etiquette. I learned how to do patient care properly.
Hey, Agent. Got something serious for you.
I got into my first car inside with helmet and everything on. I had an amazing night. And that night, my whole mentality of Metro EMS changed. That I wanted to be there. Now remember, I was an IT guy. I worked Monday to Friday. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to work there, and I've done everything. I did everything that I could possibly do to end up at Metro EMS. And I mustn't make sure I buy the same shit here. After volunteering for EMS for I think 2-3 years, I made a name there, and I always said to that EMS will be my will be something that I do over the weekend. It'll never become a job. It'll always be something fun that I do. So after volunteering there for a fairly long time, people would say to me, well, when are you going to be employed? And I think what really pushed me was the fact that the boss I worked with at that time, he put a tracker in my vehicle, because I had a company car as one of my perks, and he basically just gave me cuck about everything. Yes, Kevin, you did. And I got very irritated by that. I always felt like I was being watched. And I mean, I'm a very hard worker. I don't fuck around. I do my job and then I play afterwards. There was another incident where I drove past the base. I was going to go via this route, but my GPS took me this route. And he apparently saw me, and he now assumed that I'd done this. But regardless of the issue, when these things started to happen, I decided I'm done with this now. I'm gonna go and work at EMS. Then there was interviews. I went for the interviews, and yeah, I was employed. Coolest thing ever, dude. The coolest thing ever. But I think the most stressful was when they were deciding where they were going to send us. Because remember, when you join EMS, you kind of say you will work anywhere. That was very stressful because I was scared they were going to send me up to the fucking West Coast, which is like 100-200 kilometers out of Cape Town. But I've been lucky enough. I ended up at Western Division under my boss, and I pretty much had fun.
How's it going? You're in my prayers.
I don't know what some of my colleagues would say, but I'd like to say I worked hard. Even prior to becoming an employee, I was volunteering for calls, working whenever I could. But when you get employed by EMS, when you start in EMS, I think that's when things change. You see sides of EMS that you never saw before. Now, as a volunteer, you would come to the base, get on your vehicle, and you would go out and do your calls. When you become an employee, that's when things change. So it has changed a lot for me. Has my passion for EMS changed? Not so much, but it has been dented by people in the service and out the service that have messed around with it. So those people that are keen to get into EMS, I definitely say it's something you should consider doing, especially if you're young and you don't know what you want to do and you love helping people, it's an amazing job to do. But just bear in mind that it's not all roses and thing. I mean, how many times have people told me what an amazing job I've done, and they're thankful. It sends a good shiver down your spine. But then something small will happen, and it's like fucking everyone's against you. But at the end of the day, it's not as bad as most people sound. People always ask me, okay, let me not go off on a tangent here. Let me Let me just go through the questions. So the one question was obviously, am I a medic? Yes, I am actually for Metro EMS. I was a volunteer for like 3 years or something like that. I can't really remember.
Faith in humanity.
And then I became employee. And yeah, I've literally changed my whole persona from my handle on the internet from GDIZA to medicnick83, because I'm a medic. My name's Nick, and 1983. And also GDIZA was something from my childhood. If any of you remember Command & Conquer,
Please.
and remember Global Defense Initiative, even then I always wanted to save the world, which GDI did. But you couldn't have 3 letters in your name, GDI, because it's too short. You had to have 5. And on some fucking irritating websites and forums, 5 had to be 7 or more. So GDI ZA would become GDI RSA, Republic of South Africa. So yeah, at that time I think it was a better time to change, because I was always struggling with fucking passwords and usernames, whatever. medicnick was long enough. It had letters and numbers, and then I changed. And yeah. Okay. So what's the next question? Why is EMS not taking volunteers? Okay. So like I said, a lot of people have been asking me this, and the answer for you is very difficult. I'm not entirely sure why they're not taking volunteers. Now, when I'm referring to volunteers for EMS, I'm not talking all services. If you want to volunteer, there's a couple of services in Cape Town you can go to. I'll get to my side now. You get Hout Bay volunteers. They look after Hout Bay side of things. They do come over to retreat every now and again, and do calls in other areas. It's all crew dependent. Depends what the crews want to do.
You're gonna love
let me
this
not start
one.
this, otherwise I'm gonna get
Some
sidetracked.
doctors can
There's
tell
community
or
medics, which is now
elders
branching out in
or
all different
somebody.
directions.
They keep
They
changing
are
their minds.
a
Once
group of
a bunch
medics.
of medical
They pretty much
records from this
sponsored by
local
ER24. I
All
guess it
that
may be a
stuff's
tax write-off for
computerized, of
ER24.
course. And the
They
computers
give them
hang
vehicles
on.
and whatever not.
So they're going to be out of luck until
Then
someone
there's
goes in there, turns those
generic
things
paramedics.
on, and grabs
Very
the
nice
records
bunch of people
themselves.
that. They're also from Hout Bay.
Insurance
They're
companies
actually
are
like a
gonna love that,
security
don't
company,
you
if I'm
think?
not wrong. They teach bodyguards and all that stuff, but they have an ambulance service. They have an ambulance, generic paramedics, and then they have a response car that people run on. Community medics, you just Google these places, you can find their names. Then you get false bay volunteers. They're in the false bay side. Now obviously certain areas like to stick to certain areas, so Hout Bay looks after Hout Bay. False Bay in Cape Town looks after the False Bay Fishhook area. There used to be so many other volunteer services I hear, but they've all just sort of fallen away.
Thank you for your kindness.
There are a lot of private services, but a lot of the private services don't take volunteers. I know ER24 are very funny about it. I did inquire when I was a volunteer back in the day, and they were complaining about a whole bunch of other things. Volunteers died, and they had to pay out and whatever not. Netcare911 has reservists. I don't know if they still have it. They have reservists. But they also kind of stopped that, I believe, via the grapevine. Metro was big on volunteers, but they also kind of stopped. I don't know why. Now they've kind of started again, but they're doing the volunteer policy over. So you need your code 10 and your PDP. You need to be registered with the Health Professional Council as a basic or intermediate or advanced life support. And you'd have to go through a driving thing, which I also think is quite a joke. Because you basically... don't let me get started on that, really. Because it doesn't really do much. You just have to drive it with patients, without patients. And then when you respond, it's at the end of the day just getting you behind the wheel of a crafter or a quantum. But I really think they need to work on that.
What?
But yeah, they're doing that, and I don't know what's going on with EMS. I know that the attacks on EMS are becoming a lot. I mean, we had our first death in EMS last week or this week. The guy's been buried on Saturday. And it's getting worse. So now how does EMS allow volunteers going into the same areas? What's going to happen if they get attacked? Like say for example, I was a volunteer and I work as an IT guy outside my job. I come work as a volunteer and I get attacked and I'm the breadwinner for my family. In my opinion, that's not EMS's problem. You volunteer to do that, but at the same time I think EMS should cover medical bills and stuff. Why not? There must be money for it. But they are obviously doing their own thing. I keep inquiring about the volunteer policy and I just kind of get ignored. I guess they're kind of hoping that I'm going to go away or I'm going to forget about it. But I mean, there's other fish to fry. So just keep in mind that if you want to volunteer, community medics, they have a table view side, a camp space side, which also runs in town. They have a Steenberg side now. But like one buddy told me, it's like you have to be a click to get in there. I can't comment on that. I don't know. I know that he has sent his CV a few times. There was no replies. But whatever. It's not my fault. What's the next question? Do I still love my job? Okay, now I'm on a bit of a different project with EMS. In EMS, we're busy rolling out MPTs and PDTs in our vehicles. We're going electronic, and it's very cool. I don't care what anyone says. It's very cool. So a lot of private people that are irritated by it because we let quite a few private services use our radio channels, and now when we dispatch on the tablets, they can't hear the calls. Fuck. That was close. So there's that irritation. But at the end of the day, it's all about communication. If you don't call in service and you don't tell people here, then when something comes through, you can't, they're not going to dispatch you to the call. But then at the same time, you get certain EMS dispatchers that really dispatch horribly. They will just send anything to anything. It's frustrating as hell. But that's not my problem. Do I love my job? Yes, I do. I like to work on the road as much as possible. I used to work on the road a lot doing volunteer shifts.
Supply drop claim.
Because there was at one point there was no overtime. So I would do a lot of overtime
Supply
shifts.
drops claimed.
Volunteer shifts. Because I wanted to work on the road and because I wanted to keep my skills up.